Hello, everyone. Um, if you can hear me, just let me know. Say hello so that I can know that you can hear me. I guess I should be, I'm sure you can hear me and audibly. So, okay, my video isn't on. Hello, everybody. If you have joined, just give a shout out and let me know. I must say though that I have a little bit of a constraint sound wise. There's some construction work going on where I am. So if it gets a little bit too much, then I would probably have to um we may have to reconvene this and shut this down. But let me know if you can hear me. Can everybody just type in the comments if you're here? Let me know. Okay. Okay, yes, you can. Thank you very much. So, hello everybody. I hope you had mentioned. Thank you, Anibet, that I had mentioned that there's a little bit of a sound constraint where I am. So, if things get a little bit too noisy, I will have to stop this. So, welcome and hello. Thanks to all those who have joined. My name is Shola Abulu. I'm the principal consultant of Shola Abulu and Associates. Um, and we are a strategy and communications training and consulting firm, or consulting and training firm. And we're focused on enabling businesses and brands to achieve their objectives through strategic communications, organizational effectiveness, and reputation management. So today we're here to talk about the link between issues, crisis, and reputation management. And the reason why we're having, oh, hello, Sharon, thanks for joining. Yes, you can hear me clearly, but I have a bit of a constraint where I am. There's some construction work going on. So if it gets too much, then I may have to just change this for a while. But let's see how we're going. So today we're here to talk about, I may just have to like reschedule this, but because I wouldn't want anything to disturb the recording. But let's see how things are going. So when the noise becomes too much, just tell me in the chat and then we'll whatever. Hello, Lizzie. Thanks for joining. So now I want to talk about three things: issues, crisis, and reputation management, the kind of things that I like to talk about. And I'm supposed to be talking for 30 minutes. This is in classroom mode, as you can see. We don't have anybody in the studio with me per se. And then so I'll spend 30 minutes talking and then take questions afterwards. I'm hoping that we can have good sound for those 30 minutes that I'm going to be talking. But anyway, let's see how it goes. So what's an issue? An issue is an incident that impacts negatively on people, customers. I mean, it could be people of any kind, customers, suppliers, road users, public, employees, consumer citizens, and then something that also impacts negatively on the environment. So it could be pollution, contamination of water, air, vegetation, land, etc. And then your assets, so finances, property, infrastructure, vehicles, digital assets, bank accounts, cash reserves, share price, value, etc. I'm sure you're all wondering, where am I going with all of this and what does this have to do with communications professionals? Now, I want to say something because the reason why we set up this call is this is part of the, I would say, build up things that we do towards our training courses. So we have a course coming up on issues, crisis, and reputation management. And I just try to share a few things about the concept. And I've been using this term issues, crisis, reputation management. It dawned on me that I need to clarify certain things. So that's the purpose of this session here. So what could cause an issue? Now, I noticed that when I'm talking about issues, it's very likely that people are thinking that I am talking only about business issues. And people will be like, okay, what's the concern of business issues? I'm with communications professionals. Why should we care about business issues? Well, let's just work with me. Just stay with me on this. So a business issue could be promises unfulfilled, product complaints, contamination, product contamination, service shortfalls. Depending on the nature of the issue, it may require a media or a social media response. All these are things that, fall within the issues management process. But a business can have any kind of issues. An organization can have any kind of issues. An institution can have any kind of issues. And so as long as it stays within the organization, in other words, we'll be having problem with our staff, but it's still going on internally, there is no issue, then it is still a business issue. But the minute the issue attracts interest from the media, the minute community people start protesting outside the building, the minute your customers start coming online rather than emailing you directly or WhatsApp or whatever, or coming to your banking hall or whatever, they are going online. People now start organizing to arrange protests outside your office. or government is now issuing a sanction, or they want to issue a fine, it has become a potential or an actual reputation issue. When that happens, it is a signal for communications professionals to get involved. I want to make one point here. Do not wait to be invited. This is a mistake that many professionals make. You wait to be invited into managing an issue. You're not supposed to wait to be invited. What did I say? You are not supposed to wait to be invited, because once the issue has become something that attracts media, it has entered your space. And I'm speaking particularly for people who are corporate communications, or you are the communications lead. That's what it means. You don't wait to be invited. You need to start asking what's going on. And, not understanding this as a communications professional is why you will continue to get surprised by things that happened, or why you will even find yourself in a situation whereby, all these conversations that people say about, oh, we don't have a space on the table. Yes, that is what will happen. Or we don't have a seat at the table. So too many communications professionals, we are too focused on good news campaigns. That's all we know. That's all we know. So today we're going to be talking about what to do when things go wrong, or when they are about to go very wrong. That's what this entire conversation is about. So please stay tuned. And I would like to, if you have questions and comments, just drop them in the chat, so that as time goes on, I will take the questions and I'll take the comments as well. So again, asking the questions, so just have that in mind. We've talked about that. Business issue, reputation issue. So long as the business is handling, there's no problem. It is business issue. Leave them to handle the customer service, everybody. Once social media, community, once it passes the fence, that is the signal to the corporate communications persons to start asking questions internally. Please, what's going on? Social media conversation is going on. Even if they tell you there's no issue, don't listen to them. Continue to send them the information and say, look, this is what my social media listening is getting to me. This is an issue. Write and prepare a statement. These are the things we teach on the course. And this is best class issues management. And honestly, I would like to hear from you. From my observation, I see that this is an area that many people don't really know that much about, because I continue to see some behaviors that I hope I will have some time to talk about before we round up the session today. So if you're asking yourself, how does this relate to me? The question I have for you is that this is a list here of the kind of businesses and organizations that I think will at some point have reputation issues, or actual or potential, and also they need to have crisis communications expertise. And ask yourself whether you work in any of these settings, or you would like to work in any of these settings. So banks and financial sector services, obviously there's money involved. All public sector organizations and institutions, because they manage things that they regulate people's lives. Government actually controls our lives, our livelihood, and our physical lives. John, I saw what I mean. Government, honestly, I think we underestimate the importance of government, because they really control the quality of your life. It's not your money. It's the public sector organizations that determine the quality of life that you have. It's not how much money you have. With that money, they can still inflict pain on you. So anybody that works in the government, they definitely need issues management. Those of us that worked in Lagos, we saw what happened with the traffic in the past 2 days. That's an issue. It's a major issue. So transportation and logistics, your airline, of course, incidents, yes. Water, marine, whatever, road transport, yes. Schools and universities also, because you manage people, children, students. Healthcare, mega issue. In fact, the healthcare space in Nigeria, I don't know if it's like that everywhere now. I think they should have issues management consultants on standby, because they are forever walking headlong into issues and they don't even understand the risk. Food and drugs too, yes, that's another area. Major brands, yes, because there's a big brand, so any little issue, you have the potential for issues to be amplified. Faith-based organizations, particularly the major ones, yes, you are high risk if you don't know on a reputation level, because you have a reputation to protect. Do you understand? The small ones, you don't have a reputation to protect. Nobody even knows you. So yes, it's not the same. Are you following me, please? So I'd like to hear your comments if you are following me. NGOs of all sizes, because again, they're involved with life. If you're managing like domestic violence and all of that, people, there's a sensitivity there, which if you don't manage well, can become a reputation issue. Energy companies, construction companies, mining companies, obviously. Beauty and skincare, yes, that one. I did notice that for some of the companies I said big, small. Some I'm not even saying whether you are big, because even if you are a small company operating out of a shed and you are producing skincare products that are harmful and cause people to have very, very serious skin reaction, we will eventually drag you out into the public space. You know what I mean? That, do you understand what there is motivation and incentive for people to come out and say, please beware of these products. So yes, tech startups are also very vulnerable from what we've seen. Gated residential estate, because incidents can happen in and around the estate. You need to have a way of managing the issues. White collar employers of any kind, there's an exposure there. So yeah, you can have a look at that that list. That's, I think there may be more, but that's what I could come up with within top of mind. Now, apart from organizations and businesses, which have shown public and private sector, now another list of individuals that would likely require issues or crisis communications expertise. Celebrities, of course. Victims of malicious social media attacks, which can be anybody. CEOs of major companies, yes. Any small thing that happens in their life, there is a risk that it will be amplified. Drivers in a high-profile incident, road traffic drivers, yes, and we've seen a very recent case of that happen in Nigeria. Politicians and public office holders, appointees. Yeah, so if you are a normal citizen, the minute you take a job as a politician or a public office holder, just know that your risk exposure on reputation issues has become higher, because everything that you have done in your past, anybody that wants to create problems for you will go and dig it out and make it an issue. Business owners, yes. Litigants or accused person in a high-profile court case, yes. You may require, if it's high-profile, you will require issues of crisis communications expertise. High net worth individuals, business leaders, again. So that's just giving you the trajectory. So understand that we're talking reputation issues here, not necessarily business issues. Reputation. And what is reputation? So again, I've talked about issues. I am now going to reputation before I talk about crisis. 3 different concepts. We're trying to understand the link and how it impacts on communications professionals. So reputation is the sum of the opinions, perception, sentiments, narrative, beliefs that people have about a business, an individual, an entity, or a brand. Now, reputation is the most valuable asset of a business. Anything is the most valuable asset. Once your reputation is gone, so is your business. I believe that people don't really understand this concept. I think even we communications professionals do not understand this as much as we should. But please, if you have a different view, please say something in the comments, because that's really what I think. I really think that we don't really understand it. I think people think that we're supposed to be they're more concerned on the campaigns, on the buzz, on the engagement. I don't really see people managing reputation as an asset, having that that long-term view. It's very much in the moment. This is I want to grow my followers, I want us to be big, I want us to be make this buzz, this event, this campaign. Very few communications professionals are taking a long-term view to consistently build a brand and a reputation that will last through the ups and the downs of time. And that is what sets, I would say, what I call core communications practitioners away from the others, and particularly people who can work. If you are planning to have a long-term career in corporate communications, you need to understand this. You need to understand that issues, crisis, and reputation management is a core communications competence. It's at the heart. Everything that we do is related to either protecting reputation, managing reputation, building reputation, nurturing reputation, growing reputation, protecting reputation, mitigating reputation. And this is mitigating reputation risk. And these are the things that we teach. So I've talked about issues. I've talked about reputation, which is how people think about you. It is how people think, what people believe about you, that makes them buy you. It makes them choose you. It's not what you say and what you do alone. It's the sum total of their experience, what other people have said about you, the feelings, the way they feel about your brand. So what is a crisis now? We've defined issues. Now, I had said that issues affect people, environment, and assets. Now, crisis affects it can be defined as an incident or an issue, an event that manifests in one or all of the following ways. Your reputation is threatened. When your reputation is threatened, attacked, or damaged, it's a crisis for you, whether you realize it or not. Once you lose, or you are beginning to lose, societal support and goodwill for whatever it is you are doing. Now, I want to make this clear that this is not just about private sector. Whether you're a faith-based organization, you're an NGO, you also what happened to USAID. Overnight, literally, An established organization, of course, that was self-inflicted. We understand the politics. But what I'm trying to say is that their reputation was trashed like in 24 hours. It was the most amazing. In fact, we live in really spectacular times. All of a sudden, it became, in fact, if you are working for USAID, you will be ashamed to say it in public. Whereas just a day before, that entity was like larger than life image. What is that saying they say about how your reputation is built like a snail, and when you it goes away like a Ferrari? I've forgotten that. That's exact. You say the example is a classic example of how delicate your reputation is. Will any government in the world, can you say conduct any business anywhere in the world now? Can they write to any government, even if there's, let's assume there's one, any program that they had been working on, will anybody, do you understand? Oh, that the reputation was just, was completely, like I said, even though it was an internal issue, but yes, that was what happened. The damage to the reputation. So, because you can actually, so I want to make a point here. Because what is unique about the USAID things that you can actually shut down an organization and protect the reputation in the process. No, they lit a shining light, a light. So they exploded. They made sure they damaged the brand. So it wasn't just a shutdown, because you can actually, there's no big deal about government shutting down their embassy. I mean, their whatever it is, an agency. But they made sure they trashed, they destroyed the reputation of it in so doing. So they cannot, so everybody, there was no need for anybody to fight back, because they know that to even try to reconstruct, this was a lost battle. That's the value of reputation. So when you lose that societal support, that's also, you're in a crisis. When stakeholders become agitated, so media, civil society, government, everybody's just like, hey, what's going on, and everything, you are in a crisis. Now, a crisis requires more than just a media or legal response. It requires integrated management, public relations, media relations, communication, stakeholder management approach. These are all the things we teach in the course. If you do not understand this, you will be responding only with media response, whereas it is not only media response that is required. I see a lot of crises poorly managed, so poorly, horrendously managed in our local context, because everybody thinks that managing crisis is only about responding to the media or using a legal response, issue a cease and a desist. But then what happens to all the cease and desist? We have many cases in which they use those legal approach, those media response back and forth. It did not get resolved until they took the management of it offline. So the ability to know when something is an issue, a reputation issue, and it needs to be managed before it becomes a crisis, and even if it has already become a crisis, knowing when and how you should manage it to de-escalate it ethically and sustainably, and that reputation is what needs to be protected, not just your business. Because when you are busy trying to protect your business and your perspective, your reputation is being trashed and damaged. By the time you now get your business back up and you are looking for the people to come and work, everybody's like, no, we haven't forgotten what happened. We don't think those issues, you don't understand. You find out that your reputation is damaged. So you have the physical business, but you do not have the trust to carry out that business. So these are all the things that we teach. And I would say, out of all the practice areas that occur in strategic communications, I think crisis management, issues and crisis management is and crisis communications is the one area that if you do not go into a classroom, there are certain things you will not know. And I would like to hear feedback from all of you. Like all what I've been saying here today, I want to know how much of it you have heard elsewhere before coming into this room. If you have heard it in your offices, you've experienced it, please let me know. So please, I would like to hear feedback. Please type it in the comments so that just to test this hypothesis that I have, because I had to be trained on crisis management several years ago. I was trained as a crisis communications leader, even though I was a communications leader and had been a communications manager for years for a major conglomerate within Nigeria that operates in 80 countries. But to act in the role as crisis communications lead, which is a special role. So can I rewind a bit? I was already the communications manager. Before I took on the role, they made me understand that the fact that I'm communications manager does not mean that when there's crisis, I will be invited into managing the crisis. That for me to be able to stand in the role of crisis communications lead, I need to be trained and then validated by experts before I will then be allowed to stay in the role of crisis communication. So I was trained. I went through crisis simulation, after which I was validated by the experts. By which time, when crisis then came, I became part of the core team who manages the crisis. Because by then, they have trained Shola to know what Shola needs to look out for in a crisis so that I don't get there and I'm talking rubbish. They are saying this and I'm talking off points. Because crisis management is a completely different animal from issues. Issues you can manage with that, small response, this and that. Crisis, particularly if it's coming from different sides. And that's why you see some organizations, just that this is such a sensitive space. I don't like to name and shame people, but I can give you some. If you come into the class with us, I will give you practical examples of brands, corporations, institutions that we've seen manage crisis very poorly, and how the lack of understanding about the complexity of crisis and the way in which it should be managed has continued to make sure that you continue to see this back and forth. The issue press release, the other person issues, the issue, the person, no. I'm me sitting watching, I'm like, don't you I can see all the mistakes they are making because I have a framework. And what I do generally, everybody that knows me knows that I like crisis. Not that I like trouble, but I like crisis because I didn't ask for the trouble. But if the trouble comes, I use it as an opportunity to study. So I have so many case studies. And do you know the funny thing? We have a lot of case studies of poorly managed crises that have played out in the media, but very few of well-managed crisis. So you can see from even this, before I go here, let me just talk a little bit about what is on the left side. So a reputation issue not well managed. This is now where we get to the link between issues, crisis, and reputation. When a crisis, an issue is not well managed, it will surely escalate to a crisis, particularly when it's an issue that is gathering momentum. Now, you as a communications professional, if you're a communications manager, you should be able to tell this issue is gaining traction. You should be monitoring and telling your organization, this is an issue. And I always had to do that a lot. And business leaders, they will always try to no, this is not a big deal. It's just some little people talking on the internet. Don't pay any attention to it. But then you should be somebody who monitors and you can tell certain things should be able to let you know that this is really an issue and we should be paying attention to this. So if it's not well handled, it will damage your reputation. By the time it goes from issues to crisis to reputation. If you do not protect your reputation, even in the management of the issue, it will affect your business. And a complete or progressive loss of reputation will mean sales will reduce. High talent employees will definitely, because they have options. Nobody wants to work in an organization with a bad reputation, particularly if you have options. The government may end up sanctioning you. The community may reject your presence. Media coverage will continue to damage your reputation. Investors may back out. Loss of market share will occur. Even a wedding planner who handled the event wrongly and there was a major accident at their venue, like the person who handled an event and the fire caught the whatever, like in Lagos sometime last year, do you think it will not affect their business? As in, really? So I'm bringing it down to that level for you to understand. And that issue just happened. I'm not sure if it was ever addressed by the person involved, nothing. But then I understand it's a small whatever. But I'm saying if you're a big business, you really cannot afford to die. You have to manage that issue as bad as it is. You have to manage it and let people understand that, okay, what are the circumstances that led to this? What are we doing to make sure that this will not happen again? And that is 100% core communications capability. I'm telling you, if you want to differentiate yourself in corporate communications or organizational and institutional communications, please build your capacity in issues, crisis, and reputation management. Even if you're not going to attend an SA&A course, begin to study it as a concept online or find somewhere where you're going to get that learning. Because my observation in Nigeria, in fact, I think one of the observations that I had when I came out of my full-time employment and started being an independent consultant was I was surprised that everybody is only managing good news. I was like, meanwhile, I came from an issues management background. I was like, what kind of world is this? All you are doing is campaigns, events, thrills, vibes. I'm like, what? Is this communications? Ha! Which is why, and I think that's why for me, there has been a personal pull. Public sector and political communication, political context, people keep coming to me. You know, even though I've not come there, because they see that this one, yeah, it's like you understand how to handle hard things. Because I came from an industry that manages issues. But I've seen that all of you, sorry, is happy-go-lucky communications you are doing. I kid you not, too. You have to spread it out a little bit. Because if all you are used to doing is communications when things go well, then why do I need you when things go wrong? And then when things go wrong, somebody else, I had to go external to solve the problem. Why then do you think by the time we're now back to business and everything has been resolved, that I will now count you, who, by the way, you could not help me when I was in trouble? Why will I see you as an ally that I need to continue to keep in my ecosystem? You have just proven to me the limit of your capability. Now, we have a lot of courses in SA&A. Today, I'm going to be very, very frank and open, like I normally do. Sometimes I try to censor myself a bit. When we have courses on strategic communications, brand strategy, a lot of people rush it because they believe it will help them for their job today, which is the good news, happy-go-lucky communications. But when it comes to issues crisis, they're like, oh, I don't need it today. I'm like, yes, but that's the point. You will not need it today, but the day you will need it will not give you notice. And every time I keep getting these calls, frantic calls from people, hey, Shola, help me. I'm like, now, yes. You now want to pick Shola's brain. Anyway, I kid you not. So I'm saying, don't wait until when you will be exposed if you're a communications person. Because if you don't have it, like people say in Nigeria, if you didn't day, it didn't day. Without training or experience in crisis communication simulation, you will not know what to avoid doing. I don't even like to say, when I'm talking about crisis management, I don't like to talk about what to do. If all you can do is know what to avoid, you'll be okay. Because it's not so much about what to do. There is no hard and fast rule. There's some concepts, there are principles, but a lot depends on the context and what is going on. Crisis, so even I cannot tell you, okay, this is how to do this. We have some concepts and principles which we share for, how to manage response, the forces of media response, templates and communications, how to manage stakeholders, how to think about the crisis, how to analyze it. But you will learn more from what not to do. Common mistakes to avoid. Because if you avoid those enough, then at least you will not make things worse, even if you may not really know what to do. So there are two levels of what you need to know as a communications professional is what to do, but more importantly, what to avoid doing. So just to bring the link back together, because that's the reason for today's session, a business issue, if not managed well, will become a reputation issue. That can even include employee issues about salary and all that. If it's not managed well, we will see, all of us will know that your staff, when you start seeing staff employees protesting, they've not paid us a salary for 6 months. It's a reputation issue. But it was a business issue. Maybe there was a real reason you didn't pay them. You didn't have money. There was some, you could have managed it, but you did not manage it in the business. So now the society has been called into the matter. It has become a reputation issue. At that point, anybody managing communications needs to talk to the HR and say, HR, what's going on? And if they say it's not your business, you tell them, no, it has entered the media. So it's now my business. I need to know, I need to have a holding statement on this. I need to know what are the key facts, what are we saying, what are the issues, what are the risks, how are we managing this? You get involved. That's how communications at a global standard is managed. And I'm really wanting to hear your question, because everybody is quiet now, apart from Bukola, who has said reputation mismanaged becomes a crisis, and Karen says the trust to carry out the business. Yes, that's very important. If you lose the trust to carry out your business, you are really going to have a lot of problems. So if it's managed well, so I have this chart here where I showed if it's not managed well, it will escalate. And I gave 3 examples here. One from the US, Tesla brand crisis. In fact, that one, we're going to do a deep dive into that Tesla issue on the course. Because, man, I don't even know how you can self-sabotage yourself to that extent. But I think there's just a lot of learning there for business leaders as well, when you are the face of the brand and how you have to be careful how you play outside of the brand. But this is the kind of awareness that communications professionals need to know, that crisis can come in many ways. Another example of issues not well managed that became a reputation issue and a full-blown crisis, the Kenya finance bill crisis. In fact, even though it's de-escalated, the undertones are still there. I don't think it was well managed, if you asked me, but they managed to de-escalate. The undertones are still there. I think eventually it will continue to be an ongoing issue. But it has damaged the president's reputation. Is not the same. That for sure. is definitely that view everybody had about him before. Nope, it's not that way anymore. And I think it's because of the way he managed it, and they could have done it differently. They could really, it was a choice. I don't know why politicians do that, because he could really have come out of that a hero and even enhanced his reputation, but that opportunity was missed. The same thing with the tomato paste case in Nigeria. It wasn't even an issue, if you ask me. Something you will have resolved by calling the person, please, let's know your complaints. Okay, this and that, we have other, and blah. They escalated it by overreaction. It became a reputation issue. Everybody got involved. Media, government, community, activists, even Reddit in the US. Became a big issue for the brand. Major issue. I mean, I'm telling you, I was looking for tomato paste recently on a website. I was trying to order, and they were the only brand. All the other tomato pastes were out. They were the only brand. Oh my goodness. Every other brand was out on this platform. They were the only brand. And you want to sit here and tell me that these things don't matter? There were communications people advising them. What kind of advice were they giving? I don't want to mention the name of that platform. Till today, I say all the brands were out, only their own remaining. And they were showing me this is the brand. Of course, I didn't buy it. Why will I buy it? For what? So, again, to show you, I could have had a long list of those who did not manage well and it escalated, but I left it at 3. 1 Nigeria, 1 US, 1 all of that. And then the only one that I think was managed well and de-escalated was the landmark demolition crisis case. And we deep dive into that as well on the course. I think they did a lot of good things. So if you want to know how, and this, what I'm very proud of this example is that it's a Nigerian example. Because many times when you share this case, people are like, hey, it doesn't really matter in Nigeria. It doesn't really, and I'm like, this was a case of somebody that would have lost everything. But because of the way they manage, and I know, when I saw the way they manage it, I could tell this guy is using crisis communications and management experts who understand these global concepts and principles. He's not using the typical Nigerian comms professional. I'm sorry to say, to put it this way. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I knew, because the moves, the storytelling, the narrative, the framing, they owned the space under very difficult circumstances. Like I said, we'll deep dive into all these things on the course. So finally, what is the value of crisis communications training? So even though we call the course crisis management, and I'm actually going to get I'm in a conversation with the accreditors, because I realize that maybe calling it crisis management makes people feel like, oh, it's not really for comms people, because we think that we're not managers. I wonder why. I'm a manager of things. So I'm going to change the title to make sure it reflects crisis communications, because that's really what it is. But the reason why we use the word crisis management is because the management of crisis is not just about communications, it's about engagement, it's about listening, responding, and all of that, of which communications is a part of that. But because we're talking to communications professionals, I will also make it a little bit more clear as much as we can once I get that through the process. So the value of having this training, which is very much crisis communication. So you are using communications and communications concepts and principles to manage real issues. Getting that training will help you know the difference between managing an issue and a crisis, and how the different approaches you should take, what to do, what you should not do, how you learn from the mistakes of others. You can also hone your skills. Anybody attending the course, as we always do, everybody who has attended our course, and we have some of our course participants on the chat here. Thank you, Tony. You know yourselves. So everybody always leaves with a handout of the key slides. So you will have that handout as a summary, as a PDF, which you can print. If ever you have any of those horribly go wrong things, you can quickly go in and see, oh, if we have to issue a statement, there is a template for what to, the flow of how you should write a response and how you should not write a response, and the things to work out for. And, I think for me, one of the things that I remember when somebody was, I think one of the challenges that a lot of us communications professionals are having is, are we sure that we can actually stay in this profession, for long term? And I will tell you, yes, you can actually, if you want to build an empire around strategic communications, but you have to really make sure that you are learning and you are doing a lot to learn and grow. And you're not just staying in your comfort zone. Too many of us are staying in our comfort zone. That's the challenge that I see. So for so long as and it's okay if you are staying in that comfort zone, but just also be aware. I particularly, I've been doing a lot of reflection. I am particularly worried about people in marketing communications, particularly because I see that if there's anywhere where automation is going to be an issue, or automation is going to really, really get a lot of legs, it's likely to be there. And I think the more we hide or we stay in those places that is comfortable for us, the more we make ourselves even more vulnerable as a profession. But I don't want to go too much into details about that. So thank you to everybody who has commented. I think that's my last slide. So just to put this in closing, we're having our issues management and issues crisis and reputation management course coming up on the 24th of April this month. Enrollment ends on the 22nd. We have a 10% discount running till the 14th of April. If you want to join us, please register. Anibet will help me put the link in the chat, and you will come in. And I promise you, it will really it will benefit you, particularly if you work in any of those sectors that we've talked about, or you intend to work in those sectors, and you are somebody that wants to have a career in corporate communications. Every now and then I have people come to me and they say, oh, I'm attending this interview, and they want me like, oh, Shola, help me, prep me. And I'm like, it's good to have that conversation. But for me, because when you go into an interview, you want to have the language. You want to be able to show that you understand certain things, even if you don't necessarily have expertise in it. For instance, me, I'm not a development communications expert, but I have the language. I know that behavioral change communications is a thing. I understand that there's a behavioral change model, and I had to read to know that was it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So even if I go into a conversation about development communication, you'll be surprised how knowledgeable I will come across because I have interacted with the material. And that's how it is. So beyond whatever, this, whether SA&A courses or not, for me, I want us all to get to a place where we understand that we really, there are two ways in which you learn, which is classroom teaching and then apprenticeship and then practical application. But I think we have all centered around apprenticeship. Unfortunately, there's nobody there's nobody mentoring you in your office because you are the only one. So apprenticeship, you're not even getting it. Practical application, you're not getting it because you don't have a seat at the table. Your organization has already put you in a tiny box. So how will you grow? The only option left to you, realistically, is training and then volunteering. So the people who can only do apprenticeship are the people who are working in an organization like I worked in, where I had a big communications team, and there were many people to learn from, both within Nigeria and other parts of the world. If you're not working in that organization, you had better follow the training routes and the volunteering. But you can't even volunteer for what you do not know. And unfortunately, issues and crisis management is not something you can volunteer for. Because my experience, the number of calls that I get when things go wrong, that tells me the gap that exists in the market. Because otherwise, people shouldn't be calling me. Because I actually don't we don't do crisis consulting. I only do crisis training. Because when it's crisis management, I cannot consult for you if you don't want to do the right thing. So I will only give my pro bono 1 hour advice and send you on your merry way. So I have never done crisis consulting for anybody. I have done crisis management in my former 9 to 5 because that organization, I was embedded in it. We understood ourselves. I could influence. But for private, I wouldn't do it because you can't say because you are paying me, then I'll tell you what you want to hear, or sanction the, So, but you want us to train you, I will train. You want us to develop a strategy on how to manage, we will develop the strategy. But implementation, no, we will not do. So questions now before we bring this to a close. And I hope the sound was okay, not too much knocking and all of that. Okay. So any questions? Everything I've been the one talking, questions. Let me know. Okay, till today. Okay, yeah. Okay, question from Sharon was saying, when you see the brand on the shelf, of course, side-dye. We side-dye them big time. Any questions from anyone on anything, issues, reputations, anything you want me to? Yes, Olubukola, thank you. He said reputation mismanaged becomes a crisis. Yeah, the tomato paste one was so unnecessary. Honestly, it could have been handled so differently. But you know, the way I think that thing happened as a teachable experience for for us comms practitioners, honestly, because if we didn't have that, till today, a lot of people will be telling me, oh, that doesn't apply in Nigeria. I'm telling you, just I cannot mention the platform, one of these online platforms. I went to order tomato and I've been checking every week. All other brands are out. Only theirs is there. Why is it there now? People are not buying it in this same Nigeria. Whereas all the other brands, they are saying, oh, notify me when it comes back. Checking all the supermarkets, they're all out. It's only that, oh Lord, in Nigeria. So anybody, so I say these things so that we as communications professionals, we should not be, how would I say, you shouldn't, you need to be confident about the value that you bring to the, to wherever it is that you are and what you are protecting. We need to know that what we do matters and it's not just a, a cost center, you just need to know all of that. But if we don't, the reason why I think I have, and I give God the glory for that, I think I have a very highly developed professional confidence, and it has taken me time to get here, is because I study, I have been trained, I continue to be trained, I continue to learn, and I study patterns, and I have real life examples that show how certain things are going. So for me, it's very much a case of, you can't convince me that communications doesn't matter, because I have examples to show you that this is what bad communications has led to. So if there are no questions, I think I will bring this to an end now. But if I'm missing out any questions, someone should please tell me, maybe a neighbor or someone, because sometimes I now see that, I don't know, for some reason the chats, the questions come in a little bit late and then I don't see them. Yes, learning through training or volunteer. Honestly, it's very, very important. The only challenge I would say with issues and crisis management is that one is very rare to get an opportunity to volunteer, unless maybe you had already volunteered for a role and then an issue came up while you were volunteering, which you can't predict. So for that one, I would still say for other areas, you can go 100% just volunteering, but with issues and crisis management, you will have to be trained, because it's very unlikely, except you fall into an issue with somebody maybe like me or somebody even more knowledgeable than me, which is rare in this our setting. Most people don't know what to do. They really don't know what to do in crisis. So yes, but you're right, volunteering really does help you a lot. Social media, well, yeah, and yeah, most of the time, social media crisis, even you may not have the opportunity, but social media issue, yes, if you are managing a social media account and some platforms for a major brand, even if it's a faith-based opportunity, you may get that opportunity. So on that note, I think if there are no more questions, Tony, I was wondering, I was about to bring this to an end. So how do you stand your ground or prove that a crisis is not being handled properly? Let's say they don't want to listen to the comms people. Well, good question. I think if there is, you just have to stand your ground. And if they don't listen to you, it's fine. That's what I always tell people. You put your views. If they don't listen to you, it's okay. But at least you've documented your views. If what they now do goes wrong, like let's assume in that tomato paste experience, there was somebody there who had been saying, no, let's not do this. This is the wrong approach. Let's not go the legal route. Let's not go this, the law enforcement route. This law and other approach is not going to work. This is unnecessary. The public, if someone had been that voice of reason, then by the time they have gotten, you see that things have quietened down now. Yes, because they've now realized the impact of what they've done has now hit them. So if you are in that position, your voice will then be stronger in future, because it will be on record within the organization that, this thing that we did, X person did not support it, was very vocal. I got an advice from one of my senior leaders many years ago, which has helped me, and I continue to carry it with me. And he said to me that, you know what? Always give your professional view, your authentic professional view. He said, don't hold it back. That learn to separate your professional view from what the decision makers decide to do. He said, because that way, at least, you've You've said this is your professional because you are there. Because I mean, the lawyers give their view, the commercial people, the accountant gives their view. Why would the professional, this communication person not give their view? So give your view, and then let them decide what they are going to do. If it turns out well, you take a learning from it. That as in what they did, which was against what you said. But if it doesn't turn out well, you make sure you go back to them and say, this is exactly why I said we shouldn't go about this. This is what has happened, and I believe it was directly caused by this, and that we did, contrary to my advice. This is now my recommendation on what we should do going forward, and see whether they will not ask you to do that. And even if they continue to tell you not to do that, then you know you will continue to you then know that you will continue to push, say, but monitor the incident and say, continue to show them this is what I told you, and it's still not happening. This is still not going on. You know, that kind of thing. So that is how I think you should handle that. Because yes, you are right that some people will not answer you, but then make your views known. I think what is happening in most of the spaces is that communications professionals keep quiet. They say they will not listen to me, so they don't even say anything in the first place. So when you're not saying anything, then you can't even, there is no growth, there is no impact. So you are right. I mean, and I've also been on a crisis team in my former work life when there was a difference of opinion. I had a view, business leaders had a different view, and of course, that whole tension will come on board. But then when they now say, oh, don't do this, or then I will have to. And there's always a logical reason. I remember there was one particular case, and I went ahead and I listened to them and all of that, and it turned out that they were right. So that does happen. So I mean, that was okay. But in any situation where it turned out that they were wrong, I would definitely point it out as well. So being quiet is not the issue. So I remember that particular incident when it happened. That was when this leader said to me, he said, you know what, now because this has happened, don't now say because they didn't listen to your advice, the next time you now don't talk. And at the next meeting, I kid you not, everybody was watching me to see whether Ishola going to talk or not. So I still talked and I still gave my view on other things while also informing them how we had implemented the decisions that they had made. But always monitoring and being in that space is very, very key. So another question from Tony. I hope this one answered your question. Tony says, maybe being a junior staff and the boss ahead is making a decision you think is shooting the brand in the foot with their strategy. Again, whether you are junior or not, say it. Because people outside will tell them. And the person, if the boss goes outside and somebody else tells them and they listen to that person, they'll not be wondering. But I have people in my team, nobody mentioned this to me. That used to happen to us a lot. In fact, there were times when, I remember when I was, I can't go into details, I was managing social media, volunteering for one particular organization. And every single time, the leader will come and tell us, oh, my friend sent me this, they sent me that one. They were always sending us things, that this person sent them thing on WhatsApp, all sorts of silly, spurious things. And they'll use that to say that what we were doing did not make sense. By the time I put a structure around the communications and what we were doing on social media, and we took our practice, it was a volunteer role, to another level, it just stopped. The leader stopped sending us those things. So I started telling my team members, I said, see, sure, you see that those notes, those WhatsApp chats is not coming anymore. I said, because he has now seen that the level of expertise he has cannot be compared to the random things that people are sending to him to curry his favor. So being junior is not the issue. But the mistake you will make is not knowing that people outside, while you are withholding your perception, people will be telling him, his family and friends, their family and friends, or she, if it's a she, will be sending them things, saying, oh, but you should be doing this. They'll be advising them. Don't think you are the only one. They'll be advising them. So you had better say your own view. Whether they agree or not is not the issue. Like I said, separate yourself from decision. If they have decided, like in this tomato paste case, they decided it's okay, but you'll be there now. Yeah, that's it. Your tomato is there. Nobody wants is there. Your product is there. Nobody wants to buy it. Even in a recession, I mean, like even now, nobody's buying it. And I'm sure it's cheaper than those other brands. The other brands are sold out. The premium brands are sold out. This reminds me of, Olubukola says, this reminds me of a restaurant's great food, but a rude Instagram response to a complaint. Someone mentioned poor service, and they replied, do you expect us to serve barbecue fish in 10 minutes? I was like, wow. So Olubukola, how did that go? Is what I would like to know. Did it create long-term problems for them? That would be interesting. So but you're right. It's people again, people not understanding that reputation is an asset. I think it's people, and I think there's a cultural thing here where people think our products are good anyway, so you buy it regardless. You are making a big mistake. People always have a choice. And people come because of how you make them feel. It's the experience. So a bad experience completely poisons the taste of your food. I don't care how good the food is. And there's some other people that the food may not be all that whatever, but the experience is wonderful. Therefore, I will, I can accommodate certain things. So Veronica asked, I like this question. Veronica said, what? Oh, the sound was perfect. Oh, Sharon, thank you. To God be the glory. We prayed. Haha. So the prayer works. We thank God. So Veronica, you said in the case, what could they have done at least to at least die with dignity? You have a fantastic way with words. So I don't know. Honestly, it was that was quite a sad case. I don't think there's much they could have done because it was coming all the way from the presidency and all of that. And I think if anybody coming into that and trying to weigh in, it will just look like you are fighting against the president. There was really not much they could do, to be honest. There was really not much. The space wasn't there. But it's just, for me, a classic case about how reputation can be tarnished within 24 hours. I think that's the most spectacular experience that I've had in my lifetime. I can't think of any other one because USAID was such as in larger than life image, particularly in our part of the world. Within, as in, like in a few days, all not just gone. So for me, why I pay attention to these sound bites, and I thank God for the ability that He gives me to interpret and understand things and draw patterns from them, is because when people are saying don't pay attention, it doesn't matter. For me, I'm adding it to my retinue of examples to show that it does matter. And that's why when you ask me, I can already tell you, I can give examples any time of the day of people who have managed issues well, people who have mismanaged them. I have them. We have a list. We're actually keeping a list. I have a list. I have very few in this space. I have a lot here. So I want to tell you, if you don't want your organization or your brand to enter my list of case studies, because honestly, when we come into class, we are teaching on all of you. You know what I mean? Yes, I cannot say it here, but in class we will, because we don't record our class. So if you don't want your list to become Harvard, your organization to become Harvard case study of how not to manage an issue or a crisis, please try. Let your organization sponsor you for crisis communications training. So that's the last question from Morenica, I believe. And I'm going to bring this to a close now. Many thanks to all who joined. I hope this has been useful for you. If I'm missing out your question, as always happens after the session, I'll now say, oh my God, I would have loved to take this question online. But I mean, yeah, it is what it is. So thanks, everybody. And thank you for joining. And I look forward to, Anybody, please post in the registration link. I look forward to seeing some of us in class. And if you are not able to join us this month for any reason, but you're still interested or blah, 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 just DM me, and let me know. And that. So anyways, I hope this was useful for you. I look forward to your feedback in the comments and see you on the next live. Thank you, everybody, for staying tuned till the end. And I wish you a wonderful weekend as well. I'm so glad we're able to do this. We're almost canceled. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank God that He saw us through. Okay, ending this now. Take care.